going to show you how to extract, ferment, and clean tomato seed. First, we have to make the distinction between ripe eating tomatoes and tomatoes that are ripe enough for seed extraction. Then we have to learn the ins and outs of fermenting the tomato seed, and finally how to clean them so that they're ready for storage. With every tomato variety, there are differences between the softness of the flesh, certainly the color like we can see here, and characteristics that you'll notice yourself as you get to know that tomato and when it's truly overripe and the seeds are fully mature. The problem with having excessively ripe fruit is if disease gets started, it can spread to the seed. And of course, there's always the danger of the seed sprouting inside the tomato before you have a chance to extract it. Now I'm going to show you how to extract the seeds through a series of cuts so you can still use the tomato for eating. So essentially what we're doing is we're making a series of cuts on a big tomato. It's often cutting it into 8 segments. So we're exposing these locules or seed cavities to easy access with a spoon or fingers and however you want to do it. Keep going. Your chances of cutting right into one of these seed cavities, if you make 8 cuts, is very good. I often just use a spoon. You can use a pointed end of a knife, whatever tool works best, and I just go right into that cavity, locule, and scoop out the seeds. There, that's still a nice edible slice. People do ask about how much of the pulp needs to be in, and you see there, I just put all of that placental pulp, that gelatinous good stuff. Actually, much of the flavor is in that gelatin that encases the seeds. And you'll notice that when you do eat these tomatoes afterwards. Now here's one where it was cut so thin that it's just best to get that whole segment. In the fermentation, all of that tissue will start to break down and will release the tomato, so it's not a problem. If you have a lot of tomatoes and want to speed this process up, you make a radial cut along the equator of the tomato, and then you just bring it right in and you essentially just squeeze it like squeezing a lemon. Tomato seeds tend to shoot all over. And as much of that pulp as you get in, it's not a problem. And you may not get every last seed. So now you can see that we have plenty of nice slurry in here to get a good fermentation started. Also, the other thing you always want to make sure to do is to label your jar with the name of the variety, and also it helps to put the date on there so you know how long it's been fermenting when it's time to clean it. I'd like to show you the 3 stages of fermentation. Here we have seed that we've just extracted. It's suspended nicely in the slurry, but it needs to separate. We need to separate that seed out. That was done today. This next jar is seed that was extracted 2 days ago. It's fermenting nicely. There's a clear fermentation layer on top, and you can see some of the seed has settled out and dropped to the bottom there. That's perfect. That's right where we want to be in this essentially 3 to 4 day process. And that was done 2 days ago. Then we have a yellow tomato that was extracted 4 days ago, and it has already gone through most of its fermentation. The seed settled out first, then the slurry starts to settle, and that's what it looks like, kind of milky, and that's at 4 days, and that's ready to clean essentially. So oftentimes when you're first trying to clean the pulp, the seed is still entwined with it. It's loosened from the placental sacs, but it needs to be a little further loosened up from the pulp. So you see we're going to pour this in, turn on some water, and even a good jet of water, this is really nice to have this kind of attachment here. You can get a lot of the pulp to actually go through the screen. And then the other thing you can do is you can rub this. You're not going to damage the seed by rubbing it against the screen. You rub this, and all of a sudden, you're about 50% clean there. You're going to put this seed into a bowl to get it back into a jar. So as you can see, this pulp is floating now, and it truly is separate from the seeds, which have sunk to the bottom nicely. And you just ever so slowly pour that off to get the pulp. Now, you might lose a couple of seeds. As a master seed cleaner I used to work with always said, if you're going to clean seed, you got to throw a little bit away, and that's what always happens. So now we can decant again. That seed is mostly clean from that quick of decanting. It fermented nicely, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to run it back through our screen. But the more you can blast it, and then rub it against the screen. Rubbing the seed against the screen loosens any last pulp that might be attached. The seeds that float are generally not your good seeds anyway, so it's not that big of a deal to lose a few of those. We have clean seed. We're going to put it in this slightly smaller screen here. Just want to make sure we get all the seed out. Sometimes I'll take the back of my knuckles and I'll just squeeze it, and you can actually squeeze some moisture, like squeezing a sponge, out of that seed. Then lastly, for the drying process, I like to put my seeds onto ceramic, personally, if I'm doing small batches like this, or bigger trays if I'm doing larger batches. I never put tomato seed or pepper seed onto paper because it will stick to the paper, and it's a mess to get off, and you'll have paper stuck to your seed forever. Just a little hit. There it is. Now that will dry. But the other thing I often do is just spread it out. You want to spread it out as thin and evenly as you can. Put it in a warm, dry, airy place, and that'll dry nicely. If some of the seed is stuck together, sometimes the seed will dry completely stuck together like that. You'll have little clods of seed. It's not a problem, as long as you allow that to thoroughly dry for at least 3 or 4 days in an airy, warm, dry place.